NATO and the European Union are currently debating Ukraine's request to use donated weapons to attack targets within Russia. French President Emmanuel Macron has been the highest-profile leader calling for this, with support from US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and UK Foreign Secretary David Cameron. Outgoing NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has agreed that NATO countries that donate weapons to Ukraine should not face restrictions and should be free to attack targets within Russia if Ukraine chooses to do so. Stoltenberg criticizes US President Joe Biden for opposing the use of donated weapon systems to attack targets within Russia's borders. The White House has taken a cautious approach to the war, imposing stipulations on the conduct of the war. NATO countries pushed Biden to allow the donation of ATACMS, F-16s and M1 main battle tanks, which he eventually agreed to after intense pressure from NATO leadership and member countries. Stoltenberg and other European leaders have expressed frustration over the US administration's divided stance on the use of weapon systems. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin are in favor of allowing a freer use of US and Western donated weapon systems, while President Biden and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan are cautious and intent on keeping the war contained and managed. Secretary Blinken and Secretary Austin are generally in disagreement with Biden-Sullivan, with Austin a product of the post-Vietnam US military and Secretary Blinken deferring to the European position to create consensus with the United States and its allies instead of providing clear US leadership. The White House's split in the Vietnam War-style policy is well known, and Secretary General Stoltenberg, who aligns with the Blinken-Austin faction, understands that international pressure can manipulate US policy, but such manipulation can be internationally destabilizing. The administration's willingness to bow to pressure allows them to concede on weapon systems previously restricted to Ukraine, but have now been sent there at various times. Strategic ambiguity leaves Russia uncertain about the US's actions, necessitating self-discipline as Russia struggles to discern whether it is crossing a boundary. The US administration has told Ukraine that it can attack Russia using its domestically manufactured weapons, but has requested that Ukraine refrain from attacking Russia's oil and gas infrastructure. Domestic politics in the United States are likely the reason for this porous sanction process, which is not a loophole to the sanctions but an intentional feature. The Europeans, under the leadership of President Macron and Secretary General Stoltenberg, receive sympathetic support from Secretary Blinken. They become frustrated when their arguments seem accepted by the administration, leading them to believe they are making progress in changing the US policy regarding weapon systems to be donated to Ukraine. However, the failure of the administration to apply the same logic to other weapon systems is a source of European irritation. Mr. Stoltenberg and his European allies are striving to establish a €100 billion fund that is immune to the political whims of either the European Union or the US. This would enable the Ukrainians to depend on aid for their war effort, unaffected by the results of European and American elections. This would also eliminate the US administration's micromanagement of the war effort, provided they agree to remove restrictions on the use of donated weapons and the types of weapons that can be donated, though Stoltenberg may be exceeding his authority.